The threat that once loomed like a tidal wave over the Canadian economy is now receding, revealing a transformed landscape. For months, the specter of devastating U.S. auto tariffs, a central plank of Donald Trump's campaign rhetoric, has cast a long shadow over border towns and boardrooms. That shadow is now lifting. Today, we are witnessing a strategic reversal of monumental proportions. The political and economic winds that once carried Trump's protectionist agenda are shifting. A powerful coalition of American industrial interests, political pragmatists, and global market forces has risen to blunt the momentum. And in Ottawa, a calculated, sophisticated response is now being unveiled, not as a plea for mercy, but as a declaration of strength. This is not an accident. It is the result of a quiet, relentless campaign of economic statecraft. Canada has not waited passively. While headlines focused on Trump's threats, a multi-pronged offensive was underway, targeting the very foundations of the tariff argument. This operation unfolded in the corridors of Congress, in the executive suites of Detroit, and in the complex web of North American supply chains. The objective was not to win a public relations battle, but to change the underlying calculus. To make the cost of tariffs so transparently catastrophic for the United States itself that the threat would collapse under its own weight. New intelligence from Washington confirms the pivot. Key Republican senators from auto-producing states, facing immense pressure from homegrown manufacturers, have privately delivered an ultimatum to Trump's campaign. They will not support blanket auto tariffs. The internal memo circulated among senior advisors now warns of severe electoral backlash in the industrial Midwest if the policy proceeds. The math of the Electoral College has suddenly aligned with the math of integrated manufacturing. This is a fatal blow to the proposal's political viability. Simultaneously, the legal landscape has shifted. A landmark ruling by the United States Court of International Trade in a separate but related case has established a stringent new test for using national security as a pretext for trade actions. The legal reasoning, heavily cited by a consortium of auto industry lawyers, creates a nearly insurmountable hurdle for Trump's proposed tariffs. The case, which flew under the media radar, was supported by amicus briefs from several U.S. allies. Canada's submission was a masterclass in legal argument, dissecting the integrated nature of defense production. It argued successfully that weakening Canadian auto capacity directly harms American national security by crippling a shared industrial base. This legal victory provided the cover needed for wavering politicians to step back. The economic data has become undeniable. A study commissioned by the Alliance for Automotive Innovation, a U.S.-based group, was leaked this week. Its findings are explosive. It concludes that the proposed 25% tariff would result in the net loss of over 150,000 American jobs in the first year alone. The report details how assembly plants in Ohio, Michigan, and Indiana are utterly dependent on just-in-time parts shipments from Canadian factories. A tariff would not protect these plants, it would strangle them. This report is now being cited on the floor of the U.S. Senate. The political narrative has been flipped. The talking point is no longer foreign cars stealing jobs, but a self-inflicted wound on American workers. This reframing is the direct result of a coordinated advocacy campaign led by Canadian officials and their U.S. industry allies. They flooded media markets in key states with precise, localized data. They held town halls with mayors and union leaders. They made the abstract threat viscerally real. The response from Ottawa today is not one of celebration, but of deliberate, forward-looking consolidation. The Canadian government is announcing a suite of new measures under the banner of the North American Automotive Competitiveness Initiative. This is a strategic doubling down on integration. The centerpiece is a major expansion of the Automotive Innovation Fund, but with a critical new twist. Funding will now be explicitly prioritized for joint U.S.-Canada supplier projects. A Canadian parts manufacturer expanding into Ohio, or an American tech firm opening a research facility in Ontario will receive fast-tracked support. This turns the page from defense to mutual growth. It offers a positive vision to replace the threat of mutual destruction. A second, more subtle announcement involves regulatory harmonization. Canada is unilaterally aligning its vehicle safety and emissions standards with the United States for the next decade, preemptively eliminating potential regulatory barriers. This move, while technical, sends a powerful signal of stability and predictability to investors. It says that regardless of political noise, the operational reality of the border will remain seamless. It reduces friction, the very thing tariffs would create. Furthermore, Canada is leveraging this moment of regained leverage to secure side agreements. Quietly, negotiators have secured written assurances from the big three automakers about production allocations for Canadian plants over the next 5-year product cycle. These are not public promises, but binding commitments within corporate capital planning. They guarantee a floor of investment and employment, providing a hedge against future political shocks. The role of the Canadian provinces has been crucial. Ontario and Quebec, in a rare show of unity, launched their own parallel lobbying effort targeting U.S. state governors. The message was pragmatic and focused on the subnational level, where economic realities often trump ideology. This decentralized approach created a network of resistance within the United States itself, making the tariff policy politically toxic at multiple levels of government. The international dimension cannot be overlooked. During this period of threat, Canada aggressively deepened its trade dialogues with the European Union and the United Kingdom, specifically on auto and parts. While not a replacement for the U.S. market, the demonstration of alternative pathways increased Canada's negotiating power. It introduced a note of credible diversification into the equation. The message to Washington was clear: Canada has options. The timing of today's announcement is itself a strategic weapon. It lands at a moment when Trump's campaign is distracted by internal legal battles and electoral strategy shifts. The oxygen needed to fuel a trade war narrative is gone. By responding not with relief, but with a confident, ambitious industrial policy, Canada frames itself as the adult in the room, the reliable architect of continental prosperity. The financial markets have already priced in the de-escalation. The Canadian dollar has strengthened, and automotive sector stocks on both sides of the border have seen a sustained rally. This market validation further entraps the tariff threat, making it appear even more reckless and disconnected from economic reality. The long-term implications are profound. This episode has revealed the deep structural resilience of the North American auto industry. It is a single organism, and attacking one part is an attack on the whole. Canada's response has also revealed a new model for dealing with economic coercion, not with loud retaliation, but with smarter integration, not with fear, but with data, not with political grandstanding, but with relentless, granular coalition building. The lesson for other nations facing similar threats is clear. The most effective defense may be to make your economy so inextricably linked to your adversaries that an attack becomes an act of folly. Canada has spent decades building those links. In this crisis, it learned how to weaponize them for peace. The auto tariff threat is not dead. In politics, no threat ever truly dies, but its momentum is broken. The coalition against it is now institutionalized. And Canada has emerged not merely unscathed, but with a stronger, more secure, and more influential role in the continental economy. The final move was not a tariff of its own, but a treaty of mutual economic dependency, written not on paper, but in supply chain logistics, joint investment, and shared prosperity. The silence from the campaign trail on this issue now speaks volumes. The threat has lost its power because Canada and its allies within the United States systematically dismantled its rationale, exposed its costs, and offered a better path forward. This is the new face of economic defense. Proactive, intelligent, and unshakably confident. The world was watching to see if a major economy could stare down protectionist bullying. Today, it has its answer. The blueprint is now there, not in a statement of defiance, but in a plan for deeper, inseparable partnership. The next chapter of North American manufacturing will be written not by threats from Washington, but by the quiet, relentless work of integration that continues every day in every assembled vehicle and in every boardroom that understands where the true strength of this continent lies.